friends, and welcome to the School Librarian Learning Network podcast. I'm Steve Tatro, also known as Dr. T Loves Books, and I love talking about all things related to school libraries. I may be an old dog, but I'm always trying to learn new tricks. In each episode of the SLLN podcast, I'll chat with a school librarian about a lesson they love. Hopefully, this can be a place for school librarians to get ideas and find new ways to engage with their students and staff. As a good friend likes to say, we're better together. So I hope this podcast will help school librarians connect with and learn from each other. The opinions and ideas shared in this podcast by myself and my guests are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. And because school librarians always strive to be good digital citizens, I cite sources when using material that is not my own. Without further ado, let's get to this week's episode. Hey everybody, we're back. I am excited. I get to talk to a new friend, Maura, who has this, she shared this lesson that I find so awesome. And as I was poking through the materials, I just got more and more enamored of it as we went. But before we get too much into the lesson, Maura, why don't you take a second, tell us a little about who you are, where you're at.
Sure. My name is Maura Madigan, and I am a elementary school librarian in Fairfax County, Virginia, which is right outside Washington, D.C. And I'm in a pre-K through 5 school.
And being right outside DC must be really handy for like field trips and stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it used to be when I was a teacher, but it's nice. It's nice to be able to pop in and go to all the free museums and
I bet
drive around by the monuments, and so that's
got to
fun.
set up that Library of Congress connection and get the kids out on the reading floor or something.
Yes.
That would be something. So before we dive straight to the lesson, I just want to take a quick wander down memory lane. How did you end up in school librarianship in the first place?
This is going to take a while because it's been a long, circuitous route to becoming a librarian.
I love it.
So undergrad, I changed my major a million times. I think I was elementary ed for one semester, ended up graduating with an English major, and really had no idea what I wanted to do.
That makes two of us.
So I moved back home to Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and got a job teaching in a private school. I taught kindergarten. And I kind of thought, well, this is great. This is fun. This is what I want to do. And proceeded to get my teaching license while I was also getting my MFA in creative writing. So I'm a little bit of an anomaly in that I actually don't have any degrees in education. I do have the equivalent probably of about 3 master's degrees. So it's a little bit strange. I went through the back door.
Love that.
So I taught kindergarten for 3 years, and then I got married, moved to St. Louis. My husband was getting his PhD at the time, and I was the director of a preschool and daycare center. Then we moved to Virginia. I worked in Fairfax County for a year, back to kindergarten. And then my husband got a job with the University of Maryland. It was called University College at the time, to teach on military bases in Asia. And when they found out that I had an MFA, they said, "Ooh, would you like to adjunct? Would you like to teach as well?" So I went from teaching kindergarten to teaching college level English and writing classes. And did that for 2 years. And we lived in South Korea and Tokyo and Okinawa.
Wow.
And then we moved to Ohio for a year because my husband got a job there. Well, we had a baby in Japan, and I thought, I've got to go back to the U.S. We've got a baby now. And we moved to Tiffin, Ohio for a year. My husband taught full-time there, and I adjuncted. And then we moved to Dubai.
Wow.
Yeah, we moved to Dubai, and I did not work. I was able to stay home, and I had another baby. Then we moved to New York, to my hometown, Brooklyn, and I taught in the public schools there, middle school English for 4 years.
Nice.
And we really thought about staying, but we moved around so much that I kind of got used to it and really liked it.
Yeah.
So we went back to the United Arab Emirates to Abu Dhabi this time. And my husband was teaching, and I worked for a British company on a school reform project. So the Abu Dhabi government, they wanted to reform the public schools. So they hired all these foreign companies to come in and basically be like instructional coaches. I think that would be the closest thing that we have here. So I was working very closely with the teachers, kind of modeling lessons and lesson planning. I taught ESOL. So we did that for a couple of years. And then we left there and moved to Northern Virginia, where my husband is from. And I've been here now 12 years. So at first we moved back. I taught sixth grade for 3 years. And honestly, growing up, I never had a school librarian. So my really first experience with having a school librarian was when I came to Fairfax County. And I thought, wow, that looks like an awesome job. That has everything I want in a career. And my county, I was very lucky. My county was sponsoring a cohort where they were going to pay for part of the endorsement.
Nice.
And so they accepted 20 of us. And Longwood University, go Lancers. We had the professors would come up every weekend. So not every weekend, sorry. They would come up and we'd have class on a Saturday. So it'd basically be 9 to 4. And because Longwood is probably about 4 hours from us, it would be a long commute.
Oh, yeah.
And that was about twice a month. So taught full time, had 3 kids, and, did my library endorsement at the same time.
Wow.
And I've been a school librarian now. This is my 9th year.
Nice. Wow. That is definitely a circuitous route.
Yes.
I don't think I've had anybody that has globetrotted in quite the same fashion. That's really something. And that you've been there for 12 years now. I mean, have you got itchy feet, or do you feel like you're...
I did, but my husband said, no, we can't move anymore. Well, because every time I would give up my retirement, and eventually you kind of have to stay in one place if you want to retire.
Yeah, there is that. Wow. Well, that is fascinating that you have been able to see all those places, get all those experiences. I mean, I imagine that's got to be really wonderful for informing what you do with your students, that you've got such a diverse set of perspectives to be able to bring to your students and your staff, I imagine, too.
Definitely. And I think particularly having lived in the Middle East for 8 years has definitely broadened my perspective. And I have a lot of students that come from other countries, but in particular from Arabic-speaking countries. So I can kind of relate to their experiences.
Nice. Well, clearly it's serving you well. That's outstanding. Man. So that's an awesome story. We're now going to go to a slightly different awesome story, which is the story of this lesson that you are sharing. So you had shared this idea, and I've looked it over, and I'm just it fills me with joy to just read through and see how this goes. Why don't you tell us, first of all, what do you call the lesson?
It's not really a lesson. I would think of it more would fall under like a project.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a one and done. And there's not really a particular order once you kick it off that you have to do the activities in.
Mm-hmm.
So I call it the Reading Rescue Pet Adoption Program. And I got the idea actually from, I think it was Future Ready Librarians. I saw a post on there from a librarian in Iceland. And she had done a similar program with her students. She had a much smaller school, and they had vets come in. And I think it was maybe last year I saw it, and I filed it away, and I said, this is something really cool that I want to try. So this year is my summative evaluation. And my goal, I focused on 3rd grade reading, because that's one of our school improvement goals, is to focus on 3rd grade reading. And I thought, how can I support the school's goal and really target 3rd grade reading? And I have a series of strategies that I used, but this was one of them.
This one is, I think, such a fun one. Like, I don't know what your other strategies were, so I don't mean to denigrate them in any way, but this is just such a fun, like, looking at this. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Let me take a step back. I got a little excited. I apologize. So, as a student, what am I going to see when I come to the library as you're getting ready to start this?
Okay, so when I do anything like this, like I do a book tasting or something like that, I never tell them in advance because I want to surprise them. And actually, when they come to library, I like to mix things up so they really don't know what they're going to get when they come. Sometimes it's centers, sometimes we're working on a project, sometimes it's a book tasting. So they always come and they wait in the hallway and they're like, "What are we doing today?"
Building the suspense. I love it.
Yes. So I didn't tell them. The teachers did know, but I said, please make sure you do not let it slip. So I had the whole library decorated like it's basically like a pet adoption, right? When you have these rescue pets, and I'm thinking of outside the pet store where they're trying to get you to adopt these pets. So I had signs and I had some balloons and the library was, moved the tables around a bit. And I had all the pets set out on the table that they could choose from. And they were kind of like, what is going on with, all of these stuffed animals, or some of them call them plushies. So as soon as they came in, they saw that, but I didn't tell them yet what was going on. And I kind of brought them I have a reading story stairs area. So I brought them there and I explained what we were going to do.
So just to clarify, the pets, as you mentioned, are stuffed animals, and
yes.
You laid out in your material sort of how you came about these, but maybe you can share with everybody, like, where did these animals come from?
Sure. So I did not buy them. I actually talked to my PTA. I have a fantastic PTA, and they put out a message to all of our parents, but also on the community Facebook groups. And this is a great source. I get a lot of materials from our community Facebook group.
Nice.
Just asking for used stuffed animals, right? I don't think any of them were new. And I want to say, and I said my target, I think, was 75 because I have 66 third graders. I wanted to get at least 10 more so that everybody got a choice, even the last student.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say I had 100 within about 2 days.
Wow. That's awesome.
Where I had to say, okay, please no more now. So then I brought them all home in kind of waves to wash and dry in my washer and dryer. Where my husband was saying, okay, how many more of these now? I did, when I sent a letter home to the parents explaining what we were doing and letting them know that at the end of the year, the students would be able to bring the pets home. I did share that although they weren't new stuffed animals, they were clean, that I had personally cleaned them all myself.
Yeah.
Because I could definitely see some parents thinking, ugh, well, I don't want this, secondhand toy in my house. So I got all the stuffed animals. So here's what I would suggest. And this I learned after the fact. I think I said stuffed animals, but I think a lot of people just read kind of stuffed toys. So I got not a lot, but I got probably 20 non-animal dolls and cartoon character things. So I picked out the animals, and I also picked out some mythical creatures.
Okay.
I kind of included that in it, but then the other ones I put aside. So next year when I do this again, I will specify that they need to be animal type stuffed animals. A lot of them came with clothing, so before I washed them, I would take off the shoes and all that kind of stuff. And there were different sizes, so I kind of separated them into large, medium, small, and mini. And I didn't put them all out for each class because I wanted it to be sort of equal. And so I would make sure that I put out an equal number of each size.
That makes sense. So when the kids are coming in, they're seeing a selection of animals. They're not necessarily seeing your whole store of animals, but that totally makes sense so that you, like you said, you're going to be able to make sure all the students have that experience of seeing a similar collection when they walk in the door.
Right.
Nice. I love that. So they're coming in, they're seeing all these stuffed animals that you have carefully cleaned, which is a really good point, because I think sometimes it's easy to kind of like be like, yeah, they're toys, the kids are going to use whatever. Clean, definitely going to make a big difference. I'm sure that made a big difference for the parents. And sending home the letter in advance, also a really good idea.
Right. Also, with the letter, first I was going to say, ask for permission to send the animals home. But then I thought, no, because there's always some parents who they don't really care, but they're never going to respond. So I did the opposite. Please contact me if you do not want your child to bring this pet home.
Yes.
Nobody contacted me.
Yep. Better to have them opt out than to opt in. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. So kids are coming in, they're seeing all the animals. So then now that we know sort of where the animals have come from, that you've laid this foundation work in the background, and the kids have arrived in the library, where do they go next? What happens next with the activity?
Okay, so next I actually told them about my goal to support them with reading. And I told them, that everyone in the school believes that you can be successful, and we are all here to help support your reading.
Nice.
And I talked about all the different ways we were doing that, and that one of them that we were going to kick off this day was our Reading Rescue Pet Adoption Program, that each of them was going to have the opportunity to adopt a pet who needed some love. And I described a few of the different things we'd be doing with these pets, and they were each going to get to choose a pet and name their pet, which they were super excited that they could name their pet, and that at the end of school, they would get to bring the pet home. And I said that these pets are a little bit different than most pets because the way we feed these pets is by reading to them. So reading equals feeding.
Nice.
And that we have to read to these pets at least twice a week or else they'll die.
I love making that connection. We all know there's the research that says any reading kids are going to do is good. And when you read out loud to others, it's even better. And reading to pets is such a great ability. And you've taken that to such an interesting next level of not just pets, but like pets that are going to be school available, not just necessarily at home.
Mm-hmm.
And yet still also sort of the possession of the child or the adoptee of the child, so that they've got that sense of responsibility, and taking it not just from reading because it's enjoyable to read to your pet, but reading because it's necessary to maintain your pet. That's such a great extra hook on there. Man, right. I love that.
So then, and I did say that there's a huge variety. I'm sure there's there's more than one pet that each of you can love. And if more than one person wants the same pet, they had to do rock, paper, scissors to decide who got it.
Okay.
I had no arguments.
Really?
Like, zero arguments. And some of these kids are pretty argumentative. So that worked out really well. I did have adult help. I asked, another teacher to help. On this day, because there was, lots of moving parts. And the first time I did it, I wasn't quite sure, the logistics of how long it would take and how easy certain things would be. So once they picked their pet, they sat down and they had a name tag. So they had to think of a name, and I had these, pre-printed name tags. They wrote their pet's name and their name on the name tag, and that would be like a collar. And then I hole punched them and put a string through it or a ribbon and tied it around the pet's neck. Pets who didn't have necks, we got creative. Maybe it went around the fin or the leg, that kind of thing.
That's awesome. I love that they're getting that extra element of realness to having a pet. Like when you get a pet, you have to make sure that you collar it and you take care of it, and you want to identify it. So such a nice, and I'm sure that the names some of them came up with must have been just wonderful. I am just imagining students especially when students are all together egging each other on. Some of the names like my middle school students might come up with, they had to name pets in school.
Well, I said it has to be appropriate, school appropriate names. Some of them were funny, so they would name it after themselves, like Little Dion, or But the two that I thought were really funny were two friends, two boys, and one named his dog Taylor Swift, and then the other one named his. I think he got a little monkey. He named it Travis Kelsey. And you just hear
So cute.
Taylor Swift. Where are you, Taylor Swift?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I mean, giving them that, agency in this element of a program that's going to help support their reading. Anytime we can give the students that extra bit of agency and voice and let them have some fun and also ownership is always top notch in my book. Love it. So they've got their animals, they've got name tags.
Okay, next step is their adoption certificate, which they had to vow and promise to love and read to their pets. And they wrote their pet's name on it and signed it. And then I had the other adult taking a picture. So they got a picture with their pet. And then I printed all these up. And part of the activity on another day is they have pet memory scrapbooks. So they created scrapbooks. So I printed those pictures out and taped it to the front of the scrapbooks for another time. What I think I would do differently next year is actually put the adoption certificate as the last page in the scrapbook. And that way it's all in one place. I didn't think of that until after the fact. And I kind of spiral bound all the scrapbooks, and I thought, I'm not going back and doing that.
No. Definitely, that's future iterations that totally makes sense. But yeah, once you get something spiral bound, there's no going back.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
So on the first day, once everybody's gotten their pets, then they go and check, look for books, check out, and then they sit somewhere quiet in the library to read to their pet.
So awesome, man. And there are some pictures in the folder you shared of some of the students doing their reading with their pets. And it's so, it's just so heartwarming, I think, whenever we can see kids reading things that they like. But I'm sure that they have chosen things that they are either proud to share with their pet, or that they are, some of them are going to kind of probably be a little creative and read their pet a story they think the pet is going to like. There's so many ways for them to engage with this and not only have fun with it, but I can really imagine them sort of, in addition to supporting just the general act of reading, supporting their enjoyment of the reading that they're doing and thinking about it in maybe a more social way than they might otherwise. Because I think it's really easy to think about reading as just, I am reading a book. But when you're reading aloud, there's a little more thought that goes into it about, how am I going to say this out loud? And who am I talking, who's my audience? And so I'm sure that they're gaining multiple levels of skills as they are doing this.
Right. And this also helped them practice, because we did book buddies. I did book buddies with third grade, where they had a buddy class, either kindergarten or first grade. And so this helped them practice before reading to their book buddies. Nice
low stakes way to introduce that as you're going to read to an inanimate object that if it doesn't go quite the way you want, kid, it's okay. There's no one there to make fun of you, but a great chance to practice that. Wow. That's wonderful structuring too. I love that. Man. So this was the first time you've done this lesson?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. This is my first year. So most of it went as planned. As I said, there are a few things that I noticed that I was like, okay, well, next time I would do, X a bit differently. And then for storage, I had 3 just big plastic Rubbermaid bins, one for each class. And then, so I put those out after they check out each week. They get their pet, they go and sit and read to their pet before their teacher picks them up. They put their pet back in, and they live in the library. And then the teachers on Fridays would send 2 monitors to come and get the bin, bring it back to their classroom so they could do independent reading with their buddies as sort of a treat for Friday afternoons.
Nice. That's awesome. And how long did this go on with the pet, with the pets staying in school before they went home?
So we started this in March, and I still have the pets. They'll go home the first week in June because we have a few more things that we're using them for, but they've sustained interest, which I was thinking, okay, how long are they going to really like doing this? But it's very cute because one of the teachers, she'll send me pictures of the kids reading in the classroom and, or buddy reading with a friend and their pets. And she said it's a good incentive for them to read more. Well, she'll say, okay, if we finish this, we can get our pets for extra time today.
Nice. That's awesome. I mean, because we're humans and we're going to bond with anything that's got two eyes attached to it. So I can see the kids really getting attached to their pet animals, and the repetition of it really bonding them with this idea, and also just raising that serotonin level while you're reading. That's a wonderful thing too. Like just making the act of reading a real pleasurable experience for them, not just a requirement that they have to do for this many minutes. Like, I'm sure
Right.
that is just feeding into so many great elements of reading support. Man. And I would be curious in future iterations, maybe not even future iterations, but you're in a K6 school?
5.
K5 school. So will you see these third graders again in the future?
Yes. Yes,
I
I'm on the
wonder.
master for K through 5. So that means I
Okay.
see them same time, same place every week.
I'm really curious if next year or in the year after, if they're going to hang on to their reading buddies, if they're going to continue to read to them.
I'm curious too. I will say I'm thinking I'm going to do this with other grades next year. There were a lot of jealous 4th and 5th graders even,
Oh, I
where
bet.
I thought, maybe they're too, even at 3rd grade, I thought, are they too old for this? Not too old for stuffed animals, but I think I was wondering, is it going to be a little too little kitty for them? But even the 4th and 5th graders are like, what's with these stuffed animals? What's going on? How come we can't do that? So
Yeah.
I may open it up to other grade levels next year.
I love this idea. I think 7 and 8 might be a little too old for it, but I might try it at some point because, man, I can see there's absolutely going to be at least some kids who would be into just having that extra incentive and extra sort of attention of, I've got a pet. Look at, so I can see that being a good reinforcement.
Yeah, I think if I were to do it in the middle school, I would make it an opt-in where
Yes.
you might have a big display and you might have these pets and adopt me, please. And then I could see it being something that gets popular, like, they see other people doing it and then they want to do it too. Or you could even just have them, read to their pets in the library and then put them back.
Yeah, absolutely.
For someone else to read to the same pet.
Yeah. I think I can definitely see my wheels are turning. I'm already starting to figure it out. I love it. So you've already had a couple of things that as you went along through this iteration of it, you were like, the next time I'm going to think about this, going to think about that. Do you have any suggestions for anybody who's like starting this for the first time and as excited about it as I am that we should have in mind as we go into it for the first time?
I think it helped that I started just with one grade level. And so we're a small school. We have no more than 3 or 4 classes per grade. So maybe find a grade level that, at least at the elementary level, that you collaborate with or you think are going to be really receptive to this, because it's been helpful having the teachers' support.
I bet.
Especially with the, it could be done totally in the library, but it's really nice that the teachers let them get the pets for their independent reading in the classroom. Also, their pet play dates. That's something that the teachers are doing. Like, so you can schedule a play date with friends from another class and their pet. Yeah, that's something that's happening outside of library specials.
That's awesome.
So having the teacher's support has been really helpful for that.
I also love anytime we can take the library beyond the library walls and sort of help both the staff and the students see like what goes on in the library doesn't just live in the library, that it can travel. It should travel. It should be part of what you're doing all over the place.
right? Another thing that I'm finding, I think I will start this earlier next year because I'm finding that some things that I want to do, I've kind of run out of time. So, for example, the final activity that we're working on in the library is they designed and they're building beds for their pets, so their pet has somewhere to sleep when they take them home.
Nice.
And unfortunately, one of my classes, my Friday class, I just don't have enough time. I don't see them enough before the end of, so like we end Wednesday, June 12th. And between field days and different things, they're not going to get to make the beds. So their teacher is going to, I talked to the teacher and I said, unfortunately, I don't have time to do this. If this is something that maybe you would do with them. I have a maker space, so I said, come. I can give you all the materials you need.
Yeah.
I just don't have the time, so I think I would start earlier for that.
Gotcha.
Oh my gosh, when the classes came and I said, okay, and they were like, what are we doing today? I said, today we're going to design and make beds for our pets. They literally cheered. I kid you not. They were beyond themselves with excitement. It was the cutest thing.
That's awesome. Wow. And I think that speaks so much to how effective this program is, like how effective this activity is in pulling the kids in and really engaging them. Wow, that's awesome. Huh, I love it. And I love too that you're able to use it as a sort of a jumping off point for other kinds of activities, like a makerspace activity to make beds. And I believe you had a couple of other sort of projects that you do along with this as well, if I am remembering.
The scrapbooks. So the scrapbooks, and I've included the templates for that in the resources as well. So they write in that every few weeks, and it's they can draw pictures. I have stickers they can use to decorate, and they also write about today I read this book with my pet, this, and they can either draw or write their pet's favorite part. There's also a page in there to record their pet play date. A couple of students asked me to take pictures of them with their pet.
Nice.
So they could stick that in their scrapbook.
That's awesome. That's so great, man. And I love that this activity is sort of self-differentiating. Like whatever level the kid is at, this is something that any student can do at any reading ability level because it's really them building whatever skills they currently have. So it's not like you're assigning them like you have to read at, this level or whatever. So that's so cool. Wow.
It's been I think it's been more effective and successful than I thought it would be. So I'm the type of person where I'm just, if I come up with an idea or see a great idea, I'm like, I'm going to try it. It might not work, but maybe it will. So I just kind of always jump right in. And I remember one of the third grade teachers, so she dropped the class off and she's, all right, good luck today. They just will not stop talking. They're wired. They're all, and I said, okay. And they were working in their scrapbooks and they're spread out all around the library. I have some pictures, some of them are laying on the bench seats, some of them are on the floor, some of them are on tables, just reading to their pets and writing in their scrapbooks. And so I took a video of just how quiet it was. And I said, okay, watch this. She's like, oh.
Again, it speaks to the engagement that you have built for these kids. That's so awesome, man. Have you gotten any feedback from the teachers on terms of what they're seeing or how it's impacting?
Yes. So really positive feedback. I think one of the best things or the biggest growth that we've seen is with a lot of our reluctant readers. They are much more likely to take risks.
Nice.
And, we had some students in this group that this was a grade level that's greatly affected by COVID closures, right? During the fundamental years when they were learning to read, it wasn't the best situation.
Yeah.
So we're kind of that's why third grade is our focus, is we're trying to make up for that. So we do have some students with reading is a challenge, right? It's still really hard for them in third grade and they're not reading fluently. But noticing that those students are much more willing to read and to read for longer periods of time. That's what we were seeing before, that they don't have a lot of most students at this age group, at least, did not have a lot of reading stamina. So being willing to sit and read for, 10 to 15 minutes to your pet it's a big win.
Absolutely. And you've established that safe space for them where they can practice without necessarily feeling like they're in the spotlight. I imagine that has a real impact especially on those reluctant readers. Man, this
Definitely.
is such a cool lesson, a cool activity. I love this so much. So glad you enjoyed it, that you shared it, because I just am thoroughly tickled by this whole process.
It was definitely fun, and I'm so glad that I won't try to pronounce the school librarian's name in Iceland. I'm so glad that she shared this. And honestly, I think that's, kind of the power of social media is sharing. You come up with a great idea, you share it with somebody. And
so valuable for the school librarians, particularly when we're like the only one in the school, or maybe even the only one in the district.
Absolutely.
You need that wider network. Yeah. Oh, I'm totally with you on that. Totally with you. Well, thank you so much for sharing this lesson and bringing it to our attention and letting us know how awesome this is. We're now going to go in a completely different direction. It's time for our book break.
Book break! Squiddy!
So, you can share any kind of book you like. It can be personal, professional, something you want to read on the beach this summer, whatever works for you. What's a book you think people should know about?
Okay. So I am usually reading 3 or 4 books at a time. And I'm in a book group where we read a different book each month that we meet. And our last book that we read was The Bird Hotel by Joyce Maynard. So it's an adult book. It's not for kids. Even though I was reading 3 or 4 books at the 3 other books at the time, this made me it gripped me. Right? It made me put everything else aside until I finished this book.
Nice.
And it's about a young woman named Irene who has a lot of tragedy in her life. And she's about to give it all up. But instead, she kind of makes her way to this small village in Central America. And she kind of just goes and gets on a bus and gets on a plane and wherever, and ends up at this kind of, bedraggled or downtrodden lakefront town. And within, there's a volcano in the background, and it's run by this American woman. And she ends up never leaving. You get a good look at life with expats. So there's a mix of expats and local characters. It's got a little bit of magical realism in there.
Okay.
And the description is amazing. And it's a sad story. So it's basically this woman who's lost everything. She's experienced the worst thing you can experience. But it's a very hopeful story.
Okay.
But one of the cool things about it, too, is that the author actually has a hotel, and you can go and stay there, called Casa Paloma, and it's in Guatemala, on the lake, on the shores of Lake Atitlan. So you can see volcanoes in the background. And so my book group's plan is to go and stay in this hotel sometime.
Nice. Wow. That'd be cool. I love that. So it's art imitating life, imitating art.
Right. I imagine the author, based a lot of it on, the village near where her resort is, and all of that. But I don't necessarily think these things happen to the author.
Probably. Yeah. No, but that sounds great. Wow. I'm going to definitely look into both the book and the hotel. That sounds like a really wonderful location to experience.
The pictures are amazing. I mean, of the resort.
I
really,
bet.
It looks like a really beautiful place.
All right. Well, let me add that to the bucket list. That's awesome. Well, Maura, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for bringing this lesson, for bringing this book. I know there's lots of folks who are going to be really excited to dig into this and try it. And I'm sure we all appreciate all the effort that you're sharing with us to help us get off the ground running with this. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was very exciting to be part of this podcast because I listen to your podcast when I drive to school in the morning.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for checking out this episode of the SLLN podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes, which include not only a link to the lesson, but also links to the SLLN website, home to a curated list of free upcoming virtual events and resources for school librarians. It's easy to become a member of the network. Just visit the site and use what you like. If you have an idea, a question, or a lesson you want to share, you can email schoolliblearning@gmail.com. That's school, L-I-B, learning@gmail.com. Know someone with a great school library lesson? Let us know. Until next time, be safe, be good, and be well.